It's 2:47 in the morning, and my phone starts ringing. The sound cuts through the dead silence of my apartment, making my heart jump into my throat. I fumble for it, my eyes blurry with sleep, trying to make out the caller ID. That's when the blood in my veins turns to ice. The name on the screen isn't a person, it's a place. The old family house. It's the one that's been sitting empty for over a decade. My mind races, trying to make sense of it. How is this even possible? It's been 10 years since anyone lived there. 10 years since I packed up my life and left everything behind after my parents passed. The power was cut off ages ago. The phone line disconnected. The house is a hollow shell, slowly being reclaimed by nature. It's just bricks and dust, a ghost of what it once was. Logically, a call from that number shouldn't exist. It's like getting a call from a memory. A prank, maybe? Some kind of sophisticated spoofing? That has to be it. My thumb hovers over the decline button, but a morbid curiosity I can't explain forces me to answer. I swipe to accept and press the phone to my ear. "Hello," I say, my voice raspy. Silence. Or not quite silence. There's a sound on the other end. A slow, rhythmic, heavy breathing, like someone is holding the receiver right up to their mouth. It's shallow, wet, and it sends a shiver down my spine. I almost hang up, but then a voice emerges from the breathing. It's a whisper dry and brittle like autumn leaves skittering across pavement. It says just 5 words. "You left the light on." And then click. The line goes dead. I stare at my phone. The call ended, screen glowing in the dark. Left the light on. What does that even mean? The house has no electricity, no lights to leave on. My logical brain scrambles for an explanation. It was a prank call. Someone found the old number, spoofed it, and decided to mess with me. That's the only answer that makes sense, but the whisper. It felt so real, so close. Despite every rational thought screaming at me to forget it, to go back to sleep, a seed of doubt had been planted. I couldn't shake the image of that old house sitting alone in the dark. The fear was real, but something stronger was bubbling up beneath it, an undeniable gnawing curiosity. I knew I wouldn't be able to rest until I saw it with my own eyes. I made a decision. In the morning, I would go back. I would drive out to the old house and prove to myself that it was just a stupid, elaborate joke. The next morning, the sun does little to burn away the unease from the night. The drive is a blur of familiar roads that now feel alien. As I turn onto the overgrown lane leading to the property, my stomach tightens. The house comes into view, and it's exactly as I pictured it. Dilapidated. Forsaken. Weeds choke the front yard. Paint peels from the walls like sunburnt skin, and a few windows are boarded up. Looks every bit the part of an abandoned, forgotten place. It's a relief in a way. Everything seems normal. I'm about to let out a sigh, ready to call myself a fool for driving all this way, when my eyes drift upwards. To the second floor. To the window of my old bedroom. My breath catches in my chest. A soft yellow light is glowing from within. My mind goes completely blank. It's impossible. It can't be real. I get out of the car, my legs feeling like they're made of lead. The light is there, steady and unwavering. It's not a reflection, not a trick of the sun. A light is on inside that house. The prank theory evaporates. This is something else, something unnatural. Every instinct tells me to get back in my car and drive away, to leave this memory to rot. But I can't. The call, the whisper, and now this light. They're a chain pulling me forward. I have to know who's in there. I have to understand what's happening. Fear is a cold hand on my neck, but the need for answers is a fire in my gut. I walk towards the front door. My hand trembles as I reach for the rusty doorknob. I expect it to be locked, to be sealed shut by years of neglect. But it turns, the groan of protest from the aging wood. The door creaks open into a swirl of dust motes, dancing in the dim light. The air that hits me is thick, heavy, and cold. It smells of decay, damp earth, and something else. Something that feels like being watched. Every step I take inside echoes in the cavernous silence. The floorboards cry out under my weight as I move cautiously into the foyer, my eyes straining to adjust to the gloom. The light from my old bedroom window doesn't seem to reach down here. It's just darkness and the oppressive feeling of a place that has been waiting. I take one more step into the heart of the house, my gaze fixed on the staircase leading to the second floor. To the source of that impossible light? And then it happens. With a deafening slam that shakes the entire frame of the house, the front door swings shut behind me. The sudden plunge into near-total darkness is disorienting, and my heart hammers against my ribs. I spin around, grabbing the doorknob, twisting and pulling with all my strength. It won't budge. It's as if it's been welded shut. Panic begins to set in, cold and sharp. I'm trapped. The escape route is gone. The house has sealed me in. The heavy silence returns, but it's different now. It's charged, expectant. That's when a voice cuts through the darkness, seeming to come from the very walls around me. It's not the whisper from the phone. This one is deeper, calmer, filled with an ancient patience. Says you finally came home. The words hang in the air, a chilling welcome from the house itself. And I'm left frozen in the dark, wondering who or what I've come home to. The house wasn't empty. It was listening. The moment the heavy oak door slammed shut behind me, the air shifted. It wasn't just quiet. It was a weighted silence, thick and intentional, pressing in from all sides. Every sound became magnified. The groan of the old floorboards under my feet, the faint, rhythmic ticking of a clock from somewhere deep within the house, the whisper of a draft that felt more like a breath on the back of my neck.
Ow.
It felt like the house itself was holding its breath, waiting. I stepped further into the living room, the one my parents had so carefully decorated years ago. But something was off. The familiar layout was subtly distorted, like a memory half forgotten. The plush armchair that always faced the fireplace was now turned to stare at a blank wall. A stack of books on the coffee table was rearranged, their spines spelling out a word I couldn't quite decipher. On the mantelpiece, the old grandfather clock, the one that hadn't worked in a decade, was ticking. I leaned closer, a chill running down my spine. The hands were moving backward. This wasn't just an old, forgotten house. It was a place where time itself was unraveling. I stood frozen, trying to make sense of the wrongness of it all, when I heard it. A soft thud from the floor above. Then another. Footsteps. They were slow, deliberate, each one landing with a heavy, measured finality. Someone was upstairs. But that was impossible. I was the only one with a key. The footsteps weren't frantic or rushed. They were calm, almost patient, as if they were expecting me. It was the sound of someone walking through their own home, confident and unhurried. The sound moved from one end of the hallway to the other, then stopped directly above my head. The silence that followed was even more terrifying than the noise. Hesitantly, I made my way up the creaking staircase, my hand trailing along the dusty banister. Each step felt like a betrayal of my own survival instinct. The upstairs hallway was dark, colder than the rest of the house. I was drawn toward my old childhood bedroom at the end of the hall. The door was slightly ajar. Pushing it open, I was met with the stale air of a room sealed for years. Everything was coated in a thick layer of dust, perfectly undisturbed, except for one spot. On the wall opposite the bed, traced into the grime with what looked like a fingertip, were 4 words that made my blood run cold. Why did you leave us? My heart hammered against my ribs. It was a question I'd asked myself 1,000 times. A guilt I'd carried since the day my family vanished from this very house. Who wrote this? How? As my mind reeled, a vibration buzzed from downstairs. My phone. I'd left it on the entryway table. I scrambled back down the stairs, desperate for a link to the outside world, to a reality that wasn't twisting around me. I snatched the phone, my thumb fumbling to unlock it. There was one new message, from an unknown number. My hands trembled as I opened it. 2 words stared back at me from the screen. We waited. The house wasn't just remembering, it was communicating. It knew I was here. It knew what I was thinking. The message wasn't a threat. It felt like an accusation. A voice suddenly echoed from upstairs, sharp and clear. My voice. Hello? It called out, a perfect imitation of my own tone, laced with a faint, mocking curiosity. Is someone there? It was coming from my childhood bedroom. From inside the closet, a wave of vertigo washed over me. I felt like I was splitting in two, my own identity fracturing. The man who had walked into this house was no longer the only version of me here. Something in that room was stealing my past, my memories, even my voice. I found myself back upstairs, standing before the bedroom door once more, my gaze fixed on the closet at the far end of the room. It had become the epicenter of all the wrongness, the heart of the house's dark consciousness. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to break a window, to claw my way out and never look back. But another part of me, a part I couldn't control, was desperate for answers. What happened to my family? What was waiting for me inside that closet? The fear was paralyzing. The not knowing was worse. I took a shaky step into the room, my eyes locked on the dark wood of the closet door. As I got closer, a whisper slithered through the air, seeming to come from the walls, the floor, the very air I was breathing. It was a cold, sibilant sound, a chorus of voices blended into one. Only one of you can leave. The words hung in the air, a final, horrifying rule. One of you. It wasn't a ghost. It was a copy, a replacement, a doppelganger waiting in the dark. My breath hitched. I stood rooted to the spot, torn between the terror of confronting what was inside and the terror of being trapped here forever. And then, with an agonizingly slow creak, the closet door began to swing open. The house wasn't haunted. It was lonely. That's the first thing that hit me, not as a thought, but as a feeling, a cold certainty that settled deep in my bones. All the creaks, the whispers, the strange phone calls, they weren't attacks. They were invitations. My hand trembled as I reached for the closet door, the one that had been rattling for nights. This time, I didn't back away. I pulled it open. The space inside wasn't filled with dusty coats or old boxes. It was filled with him, me, an older version, with lines of exhaustion etched around his eyes. His shoulders slumped, not in menace, but in a profound weariness. He looked at me with a sad, knowing gaze, and the impossible truth crashed down. I wasn't the only one here. He didn't speak, but I understood. It was a rule, an unspoken law of this place. Every time someone abandons a home, a place they once loved, a part of them stays behind. A memory, an echo, a ghost made of regret. This house didn't collect souls. It collected what was left of them. All those strange bumps in the night, they were the echoes of my own past footsteps. The whispers. The memory of my own voice, caught in the walls, the phone calls. That's what chilled me the most. The house remembered everything. It remembered my habits, my voice, the heavy regret I carried when I walked out that door years ago. It used those memories, stitching them together to make the phone ring to call me back. It wasn't a spirit trying to trick me. It was the house itself, using the only language it knew my own past to ask me to come home. I looked at the man in the closet, the man who was me. He wasn't a monster. He wasn't evil. It was the part of me that had stayed, the part that couldn't bear to let this place be completely alone. He had stayed to keep the house company, to wander its empty halls so they wouldn't feel so forgotten. The fear I'd been feeling for days slowly dissolved, replaced by an aching sadness. This wasn't a haunting. It was a tragedy. He finally spoke, his voice a hoarse whisper, a perfect echo of my own. "Only one of us can leave," he said. The words hung in the air, heavy and absolute. "If you walk out that door, I'm trapped here, forever." The choice wasn't about survival anymore. It was about sacrifice. Do I save myself and condemn this other me, this ghost of my past, to an eternity of solitude? Or do I stay and let him finally be free? The weight of it was crushing. I was no longer fighting a monster. I was deciding the fate of a part of my own soul. Just as the silence became unbearable, my phone, sitting on the dusty nightstand, began to ring. The screen lit up the dark room. The caller ID was my own name, my own number. The cycle was never going to end. The house was calling again, ready to create another echo, another memory, to keep it from being lonely. The me in the closet just watched, his expression unreadable. He knew. He'd seen this happen before. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, the ringing of the phone drilling into my skull, the gaze of my other self holding me in place. The choice had to be made. Who would walk out into the dawn, and who would become another whisper in the walls? I turned, the floorboards creaking under my weight, and the screen went black before I took a single step. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the grimy windows of the house. It was silent. Utterly, completely silent. The doors were closed, the lights were off. It looked just as it had for years, abandoned, empty, waiting. From the outside, you'd never know the choice that had been made within its walls. You'd never know that one version of a man was finally free, while another had just begun his long, lonely watch. So, if a place you once loved ever calls you, if you hear a familiar voice on the other end of the line from a house you left long ago, ask yourself, is it calling you home? Or is it just looking for someone new to stay? Think about that, and maybe don't answer. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments what you would have done. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that will keep you up at night.